Mr. Speaker, there's a colloquial saying in Mandarin, 钱能解决的问题不是大问题，有钱都不能解决的问题才是大问题. In English, it means that the problems that can be solved by money are not major problems. The problems that can't be solved even with money are the real major problems. I want to thank PM Wong and his team for a generous, inclusive and empathetic budget this year. It reaffirms that we have a leadership and government that is committed to enable Singaporeans and to ease our burdens whenever required to do so, at the extent that is prudent and fair for all. I rise today to address two pressing concerns that lie at the heart of our nation's future, which can't really be solved by money. One, the opportunity cost of our academic-centric education system on personal fulfilment, and two, the concerning trend of declining fertility rates in our hyper-competitive society. These two issues, although seemingly distinct, are deeply interconnected, requiring not just fiscally generous grants, but a fundamental shift in our policy mindset. Let's take stock. What we have now. A tuition industry that's fueled by $1.8 billion a year from anxious parents, combined with a budget of $14.75 billion last year from MOE. Yes, Singapore has long prided itself on being a global leader in education. Our students consistently rank at the top of international assessments, which is a testament to our system's rigor and discipline. Yet we must ask ourselves, is this really still the best way forward? Nearly a third of our young people aged 15 to 35 reported symptoms that included feeling empty, tense, or upset most of the time, according to the National Youth Mental Health Study. These are signs of a generation that feel a lack of meaning in their lives, are high-strung and easily triggered. Our total fertility rate is at an all-time low. Parenthood is daunting for most young couples, especially financially daunting. Imagine having to join that $1.8 billion rat race just to feel like you're being a decent parent and you're not causing your child to lose out or letting them down. And this pressure flows downwards onto the children as well, because when parents are sacrificing so much of their own resources, time, money, effort, in the hope that they can at least catch up academically with their peers. All children want to live up to parents' expectations, and the more parents invest, the more pressure the child feels, regardless of whether they know to articulate it or not. Our unwavering emphasis on academic excellence has created an opportunity cost, one that diminishes our youth's ability to discover, nurture, and pursue personal passions beyond the prescribed curriculum. Last year in my budget speech, I spoke about shifting from a performance-based culture to an appreciation-based culture so that Singaporeans can feel the intrinsic rewards from what they do and derive motivation and satisfaction from contributing to something beyond delivering KPIs. This year, I stressed the importance of having a purpose-based culture. History has repeatedly shown that excellence is derived through purpose rather than pressure. Walt Disney's creative empire was built on a purpose to create places where families could have fun together. Oprah Winfrey built a media empire from the purpose of empowering women and promoting positive self-image through her talk shows. Steve Jobs' passion and purpose was to build an enduring company where people were motivated to make great products. These examples highlight how intrinsically driven individuals pursuing their passion leads to long-term success. Today, a child's schedule is filled with school, tuition, enrichment classes, leaving little room for unstructured exploration, creative thinking, or simply being a child. The consequence is a workforce that is well-trained but often disengaged, with morale easily impacted by negative experiences that are bound to be encountered in the day-to-day. Without a strong anchor, powered by personal purpose and intrinsic passion for what one does, this day-to-day unhappiness easily chips away at one's well-being and motivation. Studies suggest that when children are constantly evaluated based on external validation, they struggle with low self-esteem, burnout, and difficulty making independent life choices. Research in the International Education and Research Journal indicates that while extrinsic motivation, such as recognition from teachers and parents, can offer short-term incentives, Intrinsic motivation is what fosters lifelong passion and excellence. It is important that children and youths are given time and opportunity to explore life in order that they may discover their passion or purpose. Right now, too much of their mental and emotional bandwidth are spent on ensuring or worrying about whether they can perform up to par in standardized settings. I acknowledge the government's commendable efforts in recent years to introduce student-led learning in secondary schools, the shift away from mid-year exams, and the expansion of applied learning programs. These are important steps in the right direction, and I ask that we take another bold step forward. To build on the progress made, I propose a further revamp of our education assessment models. A paradigm shift is needed, one that balances academic proficiency with opportunities for passion-based exploration. We can remove high-stakes examinations in favor of continuous, diverse assessments that factor in classroom participation, social-emotional skills, creativity, and interpersonal skills, and we can start these in primary school. Allow students to choose topics of interest for assessments, such as selecting preferred oral exam topics rather than answering preset questions. Expand structured free time within school hours for students to engage in non-structured exploration, such as outdoor, community, and cultural excursions, without fear of falling behind their peers. Revamp PSLE to lower paper-based weightage in favor of alternative assessment methods, such as performance tasks, presentations, and portfolio building based on real-world applications and personal interest. Singapore's success has always been built on adaptability. So let us adapt again to foster a generation that thrives not only academically, but also holistically, where passion and pleasure fuels purpose and performance, not pressure. With these shifts away from exam-based assessments, we can minimize the role and effect of money in children's educational outcomes, taking the pressure of young parents to avail their bandwidth and energy towards other personally meaningful pursuits that also make them positive role models for their children towards a purpose-driven life. Now I'll address our low fertility rate. Mr. Speaker, the government deserves recognition for its extensive family support policies, including parental leave enhancements, increased childcare subsidies, the increasingly generous baby bonus, and expanded housing grants for young families. However, the hard truth is this: financial incentives alone are insufficient. I've been in some conversations with older Singaporeans about the dismal birth rate, and I hear young people being judged as selfish for, I quote, wanting to enjoy their own life instead of sacrificing for children. I want to speak up for all millennial and younger Singaporeans that wanting to have more joy and enjoyment in life is not selfish, it is human. In the 70s and 80s, when we were still trying to develop our economy, there wasn't much options for entertainment, recreation, or opportunities for activities to derive enjoyment from. Between work and home, eking out a living, home and kids afforded more joys. Having kids, nurturing kids, having the joyful companionship of growing kids was enjoyable. Life was simpler back then. There was less entertainment, less distraction, less options, less comparison. Today, family life no longer conjures up the notion of joy. Having a family brings with it notions of obligation, duty, pressure, sacrifice. All of these don't seem pleasurable at all to the current generation who have different and higher aspirations for their lives. At the same time, a whole other host of pleasurable activities are now accessible. It's unnatural to ask people to choose pain over pleasure. The psychological barriers, fear of lost career progression, concerns over work-life balance, and the daunting prospect of raising children in a hyper-competitive society continue to dissuade young couples from embracing parenthood, and I say it's understandably so. While financial assistance is crucial, we must redefine the experience of parenthood to align with the aspirations of young Singaporeans. Alongside financial support, we must reframe the narrative around parenthood. Rather than merely compensating for the costs, let us shift attention and resources towards promoting the joys of parenthood and helping people see the intrinsic rewards of raising a family. As an imperative, depressurizing the education system would allow young couples to feel better able to channel their finances to lifestyle and aspirational pursuits as a family, rather than having to spend hefty sums on tuition and enrichment classes, which really makes for very poor parent-child relationships. We need to amplify positive parenthood stories that resonate with the aspirations of the current generation. For example, how lifestyle and travel experiences are more meaningful and fun when shared with a spouse and children than alone. We can help the public realize that the same skills honed through parenthood, social emotional awareness and regulation, communication and negotiation skills, strategic decision-making for use of resources, and fostering healthy teamwork with one's spouse are all life and leadership skills that apply professionally too to help one thrive in their career. Let's engage employers as allies to reshape workplace culture for better employee satisfaction and retention. Encouraging businesses to promote work-life reconciliation, such as family-friendly workplace cultures, right to disconnect policies, or more bring your kid to work days can make parenthood a compatible aspiration rather than a burden. Lastly, we may need to slay the sacred cow of self-sufficiency. This is a social compact narrative we've held onto the past decades as a cornerstone of our social support policies, when in reality, all the social transfers that the government has been rolling out is actually speaking to the opposite. If we adjust the narrative and mindset towards collective sufficiency, Singaporeans can feel less like they need to go it alone. We need to invest in support networks for parents where families feel connected, supported, and less isolated in their parenting journeys. Having community spaces and informal child-minding networks that parents feel safe to park their kids with in the neighborhoods while they run errands or go on a short date with each other can go a long way to create a sense of psychological security around raising children. Our nation must acknowledge that fostering a more family-friendly society is not merely about easing financial burdens, but also about building within society the support systems that enable parenting to be less stressful, more joyful. Mr. Speaker, Singapore's future lies in a generation that is not only well-educated, but also well-rounded, in a people that are not just financially capable, but also emotionally fulfilled. The role of parenthood in providing emotional fulfillment is not talked about nor shared enough as yet. We need to take the lead in dialing down on pragmatism and amping up on the feel-good cuddle factor in our conversations around parenthood. It is time to redefine our success metrics from grades and rankings to personal fulfillment and well-being. It is time to reshape the narrative around family from cost and sacrifice to joy and aspiration, to build a Singapore where both dreams and families can flourish. I support the budget.